what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by A Plain Truth and Sleeping Warrior. How are you both doing?
So.
Here's my answer.
So we've had a bit of I have had a bit of a weird 24 hours. I've got Slice Barkane on the one hand saying that he's proven that the horizon rose in the Isle of Man footage. Yet he didn't show all of the evidence, and his interpretation was because it was restricted. It did make it look that way, but because he didn't show the full set of the evidence, he's basically misrepresenting the evidence. So I challenge you formally, Sly, to either get on the panel and let's discuss this, or find some other way to make your point and allow me to respond live somewhere so it can be done contemporaneously. You can't keep claiming the horizon is rising when it's obviously, demonstrably, verifiably, and repeatedly not rising. Are you a moron? So, Sly, get it sorted. Sort something out. If you won't come on Nathan's channel, let's do it somewhere else. We'll do it on your channel in front of your subs. The other thing is that the guy that's called I Can Science That. I don't know whether or not he's seen our response yesterday to his channel, but he's playing the let's find out the truth card. Let's work together and work together, like, buddying up. So what I'll say to I Can Science That is, if you can science that video, then you must come to the conclusion that you proved that Simon Dan was totally and utterly wrong with his interpretation of the evidence. And if you do come to that conclusion, then we can talk about where the curve is meant to be. But if you don't come to the conclusion that Simon Dan is completely wrong, then there's no point in talking. So it's up to you. Are you going to accept, admit, and declare that Simon Dan was wrong in your analysis, which was better than ours, or not? If you're not going to do it, that's the end of the conversation. I'm done.
Got it? Cool. Did you do general housekeeping? Any signs of actual curvature anywhere?
No, there is one other thing. We'll do
okay.
the housekeeping sec. We'll come back to housekeeping in a sec. What's his name? Alki. He thinks that we're flogging a dead horse, Nath, with regards to the perspective argument. And I can only presume that he doesn't get it. Now, I'm going to start off with the same disclaimer that I give, because not everybody understands this. And it's because we're all indoctrinated by the metabolic curve calcs. The reality is, a lot of people won't get this. And if you're not a protagonist, in other words, you're a follower, like Al K, Dawn Treader, you're probably not going to understand this, but it's okay. I understand that you guys don't all understand it. But if you're a protagonist like the Rumpus, Slice Barkane, or any of those nonces, then you're going to understand this completely. We live on a plane, things get smaller over distance. However, we live on a ball, things get smaller over distance and drop behind the curve. If you guys don't understand that, then it's an issue. But for those that do understand it, show us how it's calculated on the curve calcs. Where's the perspective accounted for? And if it isn't accounted for, how is it that you guys put in 1,000 foot when it should be 1,000 foot at 30 miles? I have a back and forth with Mick West that we could go through a bit later on. We'll come back to that. But in the meantime, let's do the housekeeping, Nath.
Yeah, top of the list. Any signs of curvature? Plain truth.
I haven't gotten up high enough yet.
That's a good answer. What we should do is we should pretend to play the ballers card for all the excuses they've got for why there is no evidence of curvature. But Sly reckons he can prove curvature on my footage. So let's just remind people: Sly reckons that I've proved the shape of the Earth on my footage. Yet he will not accept the challenge. So Sly, come on, get it sorted.
About axial rotation, any signs of that yet?
It's the stars again, Nath. It's the stars. But otherwise, no.
Nothing that's not a non sequitur conclusion.
No.
No.
Nope.
Any
Not
evidence, scientific evidence of R?
No, it's only presupposition, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we've been led to believe that. Although Charles is alluding that if we were to demonstrate men guarding the Antarctic, he would provide us with scientific evidence. So it might.
Oh yeah, we all claim that men guard the Antarctic, right?
But nonetheless, regardless of his farcical conditional acceptance, he has essentially alluded to having scientific evidence of the R value. So, either he's a liar, which is what I would assert, or he's holding back evidence. Either way, not good news for Charles.
What Charles is doing there is the burden of proof reversal fallacy. He who asserts must prove, and the assertion by Charles is that there is a radius and that he's got evidence to prove it. We are not making any claims about anything other than there is no scientific evidence of the radius of the Earth, and it's wrong to apply the fallacy known as the burden of proof reversal against us for questioning the authority on which it's based. So that radius, Charles, can you provide evidence of the radius, because it's your burden, not ours, and we don't care about anything to do with the Antarctic patrols and whatever. We can't do anything about proving or disproving it because nobody can get there, or we can't get there. But what we can do is check for the radius. And if you claim you've got evidence of the radius, it's not subjective to a straw. It's not subject to a straw man argument that you present against us. We don't care about the Antarctica. If you can prove the radius, just do it. Let's see what you've got.
Pressurized system next to a vacuum. Any evidence of that?
Well, isn't that like step 2 in that argument? Isn't the first step of that argument that there has to be a container in the first place? So what's the walls of the container? Like, it's like having the tire with air in it, but with no tire.
Absolutely, that would be the argument against it. However, it is claimed that the Earth as a sphere spinning through space has a pressurized system next to a vacuum. So, just asking if anybody claims they have any evidence of this. Clearly not.
Can we do a thought exercise?
There's just one more, and then we can.
Oh.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of Earth? Anybody?
Don't know, you better ask Paul Voigt. He's the one that claims that.
Paul Voigt, yes, he said he got some evidence of that. Paul Voigt, still waiting, my friend.
Although there is a video on my channel, it's my second most popular video with GeoStreamer. It's a conversation about that exact point, the Curie temperature in the application of iron, the iron core that we have. It's only 20 minutes long, 20-something minutes long. But in that video, you can see that not only does Paul Voigt have no evidence, but also GeoStreamer has no evidence for molten iron creating a self-perpetual charge which magnetizes the whole of the Earth, that perpetuates its own currents that we all enjoy, the inner cores of the Earth. So feel free to check out my channel. The second most popular video, it's GeoStreamer. It destroys the notion that we have a hot molten iron core. So Paul Voigt, GeoStreamer, both in the same category there.
That's pretty much it then. What was the thing you wanted to get to?
Well, I'll start with an appeal to people like the protagonist on our side, the big protagonists on our side. So the likes of John Christianopoulos, we've got Globebusters, we've got Jeren. If we can basically start beating the drum about this, because Jeren's onto it. I was watching Jeren on with what's his name, Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, and M. Scott Veach, the son of an astronaut, the lying astronaut that told him that the Earth was a ball. And Jeren's onto it. He realizes that perspective is a thing, and we need to beat this like more so that more flat earthers are aware. Because the reality is the curve calcs do not account for perspective. They account for the geometric drop, and only the geometric drop do not account for perspective. So you guys, let's push this out there and see what the retort is, because it's another one of those ones that seems to be sticking, and there doesn't seem to be a response by the ballers. Even Mick West himself, I'll come back to him in a sec. He admits that there is perspective maths there, and it doesn't apply in the curve calculators. But we'll go through that in a sec. The thought experiment. Imagine your top 10 favourite ball earthers. So for me, it's the likes of Slice Barkane, Sean Hufford, Reds, Rhetoric, Al Key, Miles Davis. Where's he for the last 3 months? Think of your favourite ball earth protagonist people, right? And imagine that we line them all up like in a military firing squad, but we're not going to shoot them. But we line them all up and we ask them all at once together, can you explain to us why perspective is not considered in the curve calculator? And what will happen is the ones that lead will maintain eye contact with you, but the sheep will all turn to the one that they look up to and like say, oh, I'm passing the buck here. So you've got like Dawn Treader and you've got Alkir. They'll both turn to people like the Rumpus or Slice Barkane, and they'll go, oh, I'm not answering that one, because they don't want to say something that'll shoot them in the foot. But you've got the Rumpus and Slice Barkane who'll literally have to think up some random protagonist like diversion tactic thing that'll just take away from the idea that perspective needs to be applied to the observer target before you apply the hidden value. And that's what'll happen. You'll get half of the group that are the sheep that'll go, whoa, I'm not answering that. I'll look to Rumpus and see what Rumpus says. And you'll have the Rumpus and Sly and one or two others that'll go, and they'll start off with a major stutter while they need time to think about how they're going to get out of this. And they'll look at each other and they'll be like, who's going to deal with this? And it's going to be a case of there'll be one person that responds, all other people will be subject to, and it's whoever the biggest nonce is in that group. So let's just pick on Rumpus, for example. Rumpus will start off with, and what he'll do, rather than answer the question that's posed in a clear, concise answer. So let's just say, what day of the week is it? And the answer is Monday. Well, in this case, it's, why is perspective not addressed in the curve calculator? Why do we not consider it? And he won't answer that question. He'll start off on a tangent on a completely different point, which is technically called obfuscation. And he'll avoid answering that question at all costs, but provide an answer. And then when he does that, people like Dawn Treader and Al Key, Miles Davis, they'll all go, yeah. It's a bit like in the House of Commons when you watch the Parliament discussion summit or whatever. They'll all go, yeah, yeah. And they'll all do this echoing thing that sounds like sheep. And ultimately, the point will be lost. Me and Nathan will be sat there thinking to each other, these obfuscating idiots are ridiculous. So once they'll make their point, Nathan will then say, yeah, but what about that curve? Or what about that bulge? And get them back on track. So in this case, it's like, yeah, what about that perspective? And it'll just be considered dropped because there was an answer that was an answer that was given that seemed logical and reasonable. Therefore, the point's gone. And me and Nathan are sat there thinking, no, you just literally obfuscated us. And shout out to M. Scott Veach. He had a conversation with Jaren and Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole on Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole's radio show recently. And he continuously, for the whole duration of the conversation that he had, he was using the word obfuscate instead of the word obstruct. So when he's talking about obstruction at the horizon, right? And don't forget the baller's position is any obstruction is curvature. He was using the word obfuscate. So he was saying, yeah, but as long as there's some obfuscation at the horizon. And I'm like, what do you mean obfuscation? Don't you mean obstruction? But he did this over and over and over again. So clearly in M. Scott Veach's mind, obfuscation is the buzzword for him at the moment. And he's accidentally transferred it into obstruction. So that which was formerly known as the obstruction, formerly known as curvature in M. Scott Veach's world, has become the obfuscation, formerly known as curvature. And I just find that hilarious that he would still argue in favor of ball earthiness when he's using totally the wrong term. So check it out on Deep Inside the Rabbit Holes thing. It's about 1 hour, 20 minutes in. M. Scott Veach is continuously using the word obfuscate instead of the word obstruct. And it's brilliant to listen to because it makes no sense when you use that word, any of what he was talking about. Shout out to M. Scott Veach, you Burke. I'm done.
Chris is just modelling various different geocentric models at the moment in Blender. So he's scratching his head with one of them and working his way past his frustration before he's going to commit to giving us some time to just basically show us the demonstration between orthographic view and perspective view. And there's a couple of people in the chat that, again, are trying to conflate these two things and saying, oh, you can get the viewer's perspective in an orthographic view. It's like, no, you can get the camera position, but you can't get a perspective. Bear with me a sec.
Yeah, you can only get the viewer's perspective in orthographic view if you shrink the object size down proportionately, subject to the inverse square law. And let's be honest, there is maths for it, right? But it's not for us to go and work this maths out. It's for Mick West to do it. So Mick West has got two positions. He either puts the perspective maths in because he knows the distance that we're all putting in targets at. So let's say your observer your distance to target is what, 35 miles, for instance, and your height above water is 1 foot or 10 foot or whatever. Then there only needs to be one more field in there that says target height. So your target height would be, just say for argument's sake, 1,000 feet. But because it's a relationship like with the distance, let's say 35 miles in this case, if your target height is 500 feet tall or 1,000 feet tall, and he knows the distance, he can easily put in one extra field that tells you what the reduced height caused by perspective would be to the target. And then you apply the hidden value against that. He could do that. However, if he did do that, it would never, ever match on any observation, ever. It would prove that there is no sphere. So he's never, ever going to do that because it shoots his own curve calculator in the foot. So he can't do that because it'll prove flat. So he's going to have to do something else instead. And that'll be argue that it's not relevant because. Now, I've got a back and forth with him on the emails, which we'll come to in a short while. But he accepts that the perspective calculator is there, but he's never, ever going to do it. So if we live on a sphere, Mick, and I'll plead to you personally if you're watching, because we know that you do watch. So if you're going to presuppose the sphere, at least accept that perspective is a thing, and either put the maths in so that it can be just one line and it'll give you the reduced height because of perspective, or don't put the maths in because it'll destroy your ball model, but at least put the asterisk in that I gave to you, which was objects appear smaller in the distance, or whatever the phrase was that I used, so that we can then apply the maths. But by not telling us that perspective is a thing, you allow all the baller morons to be able to put in that 1,000 foot mountain at 30 miles away in at 1,000 feet. And obviously that's wrong. A mountain that's 30 miles away does not appear to be 1,000 feet. It appears to be about 200 feet, 50 feet, 134 feet, whatever. Then we can apply the hidden to it, because that reduced height, in almost all cases where it goes above 25 miles or so, that object is going to have dropped in angular size that much that it's going to fall below the value of the hidden. So are you going to do the adjustment to your website, Mick, or not? Or are you going to leave it? Well, you can do whatever you want, Mick. It's your website. Nobody minds if you do or do not. But if you don't do it, we'll keep beating the drum about it because it should be there.
How you doing? Can you say a quick hello?
Morning, Rio.
Top of the morning, gents.
Good to have you.
Have you wet the bed, Rio? It's a bit early for you, isn't it?
I pooed myself.
You pooed yourself, yeah? You had to change the sheets already, eh?
I had to replace my entire bed. I had to go buy a new one. It's that bad.
Have you been keeping up to date with the current position on the perspective point?
You here and there a little bit. Been, trying to pay attention as much as I can.
Do you agree that on a flat plane, objects just get smaller over distance, and that's where the math stops?
Is that a loaded question?
No.
Oh, then yes.
And if we live on a sphere, the objects get smaller over distance, but they also drop behind the curve as well. Yeah? Not a loaded question. It's not a trick question.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that one more time? I was putting my microphone in.
So if we live on a flat plane, then objects just get smaller over distance, right? But if we live on a sphere, they get smaller over distance and drop behind a plane, drop behind the curve of the Earth.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
And it doesn't do that on the perspective on the Earth curve calculator by Mick West, and we're trying to work out why not. Because every observation that's ever been produced from any camera anywhere in the world has these two effects attached to it. Objects get smaller in the distance and they drop behind the curve. But the way the curve calculator is presented, they only drop behind the curve. They don't do anything with regards to perspective. And people argue that, hey, they don't need to because derp. But the reality is it needs to be considered at some point. At some point in the calculations, it needs to be considered. And the point is, the minute you start considering the hidden height, when you apply the hidden height against the object that you're targeting, whatever that height might be, if it's 1,000 feet at 30 miles, that distance that goes, that height that goes into that curve calculator is not 1,000 feet. It's 1,000 feet at 30 miles. Whatever height that drops down to, then you apply the hidden to it. And we all know that can't change on the curve calculator because it'll never match any observation ever. Why not? Because perspective is a thing. It's not been considered on the curve calculator. And Mick West is well aware of the issue. And we're just now playing a waiting game to see how he's going to rattle his way around this, because he can't change it because they'll never match anymore. So he's got to try and find a way to either excuse it not being in there or basically ignore it and then hope that people don't get wind of this and hope that it loses momentum. But that's why I've pleaded to the people like Jaron, Bob, John. We need to beat this with a drum, loud and far, because this is nonsense. Yeah, we'll accept your presupposition on our value, but if you're going to do that, you have to also put perspective into it, not leave it out. So how are you going to do it, Mick? Are you going to put it in with one line, or are you going to put the disclaimer in? Something needs to happen. You can't leave it the way it is, because it allows retards like Dawn Treader or like Al Kay, Miles Davis, what are their names? Sly Sparkane, Sean Hufford, to all put in the value at 1,000 feet, but it should be the value of 1,000 feet at 30 miles. So how are we going to get past this, Michael? There is a problem with the curve calculator. Are you going to sit and do nothing? Hope it goes away? Bury it under the head in the sand? Or are you going to do something that's honest and adjust for it in some way, or at least tell people that we need to adjust for it?
Yeah, I think you're right. As long as people don't let this get away, because it's the how. It's the how of the lie. How have they convinced us on the ground in these debates? Because obviously we're not going into NASA's nonsense. We don't need to. It's very, very easy to debunk, and normally the starting point of most people's flat Earth journey. So that's like step 1, and we're on step 10, where we're exposing how they've done it. So when you get down to this sort of nitty-gritty detail and you're taking a photograph and going, oh, it looks flat as a pancake, and then you go to a calculator that presupposes a value of R and begs the question, presupposes your outcome, it says, oh yeah, it matches what we say the sphere Earth does. And yet it's alluding to being a viewing function, alluding to being akin to a photograph, and it isn't. It's akin to a technical drawing that an engineer would use that ignores perspective. It presents an orthographic view. And while Chris was explaining this to me, I was like, well, can you have the orthographic view with perspective applied? He's like, well, no. An orthographic view is minus perspective. A perspective view includes perspective. And he's shown me, it took 2 clicks of his mouse. Now he's got the Taboo Conspiracy, the 2 mountains, Mont Blanc, and I forget the other name of the other one. But that example that Taboo Conspiracy used, he's modelled that out and just shows the difference. How much more does the mountain in the background drop as a result of perspective? And he just shows it. It's very elegant in terms of its simplicity and how it works, and you can just see it. It works the way your eyes work. I did this on a little video log yesterday, but I explained that if you draw a single line between your eye and the target, it implies that you're seeing down a straw. You don't. You take an all-encompassing view of the world, and if you were to transpose that into a picture, you would draw perspective lines going to the centre of the picture. From all 4 corners of that A4 sheet of paper, you'd draw those perspective lines because that's how you see the world. Whereas when it's presented in the curve maths inside elevation, what you end up with is a single line being drawn. Or if you were to transpose that into your vision and say, well, it's representative of the field of view that you take in, well, then you'd actually be drawing parallel lines to the target. And those parallel lines aren't representative of what we have in reality. Converging lines, perspective. So that's what they've done to eliminate or omit perspective from the calculations. They just draw one straight line between you and the target, and it maintains its angular size, because if you had 2 lines, you could ultimately draw them at an angle, a V shape, and then calculate an angle to how big the target actually is in reality using those maths. So it's an easy step to put in. Now that it's been explained to me, I understand how simple it would be to apply perspective. It's just a secondary function, right? Yeah, well, they don't apply it. It's never applied. It's never been applied, and it won't ever be applied. As much as Anthony's aiming and angling for that, it's never going to be disclaimed, because that's how they've managed to fool people. They've got to get the curve from somewhere. They can't just say you're on a curve and have nothing in reality ever match it. It's got to do a reasonable job of matching, and the way they've done that is by excluding the very real nature of perspective. That's how they've done it. So it's never going to get included, as Anthony points out. Once they do, it sends the whole thing off in a big way so that it doesn't even come close. At the moment, we're showing where it fails in the respect that it says the line should be halfway up the mountain and it's 2/3 of the way down the mountain. But yeah, in the past arguments, they've got around that and just said, add a couple of digits onto the refraction maths and Bob's your uncle, there you go. However, when you start accounting for perspective, nothing's lining up in the picture the way it should anymore. You know, the relative sizes of mountains in respect to each other don't work. You know, the picture is no longer the same when you apply perspective to the ball mathematics. It's completely wrong then. Like I say, I'm hoping Chris will do this maybe in the next week once he's battled this geocentric model he's currently doing in Blender. He'll hopefully join Taboo Conspiracy and myself and maybe a couple of others, I don't know yet, to go through this and just show it, and visually show, here you go, this is an orthographic view, this is how it works, this is what the picture looks like in orthographic view. What do you know, it looks pretty much the same if you just apply perspective on a flat plane to the curve mathematics applied without perspective. They both pretty much come out with a similar result. Yet you apply perspective, which we do encounter in day-to-day life, to the ball model, and suddenly it goes wrong, badly wrong. Because we don't live on a ball, but we definitely experience perspective.
Do you want to share my screen, Nath?
Yeah, sure. You're up.
Right, so I've had a back and forth with Mick, and I've basically said, right, in its simplest of forms, we see the mirror, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. And I said, you need to do something like this at the absolute minimum. And what I've suggested, I don't expect him to do this. He's not able to do this because it'll destroy his calculator. But this is what needs to happen as the minimum. Before you get to applying this refracted hidden value, it should have a disclaimer on it or an asterisk saying that objects in the distance appear smaller than they actually are, because then that tells you that perspective is something to consider. Now, if you don't know the perspective calcs, then that's on to you, but at least he would then have told you, and then you have to ask somebody, how do you reduce the size of something over distance? And the maths for it is generally not that difficult, but it's not hard, it's not easy, it's straightforward, but it means that you then have to go and look into it. So he asked me, was I not considering perspective twice? And I said, yeah, I'm absolutely sure I'm not adding it twice. And I basically said that 1,000 miles is not the same. 1,000 feet is not the same as 1,000 feet at 30 miles. So he's responded with this response, which is brilliant because he accepts that perspective is a thing. And he said, imagine you've got a very long, rigid rod, one that can be expanded in length. This is what M. Scott Veitch's point is. Put one end of this rod at your eye, lower the rod so it just skims the horizon a few miles away. Yeah, well, we've already shown that the few miles at the horizon is nonsense, but extend the rod until it hits the distant mountain. Consider the point where the rod hits the mountain. Where the rod hits the mountain is where the line of sight from your eye to the horizon hits the mountain. There's a straight line from your eye to the horizon to the mountain. Is that true?
No, because there's two lines. You're taking in an expansive view. You haven't got one dotted line between your eye and that mountain. You've got
what about the straight line bit?
But the straight line is irrelevant if he's saying the lines of light curve. You've already had him on this point. It's double speak. So if you're going to say we're taking straight lines of sight, Mick, well, what the hell are you talking about with your bendy light? No.
Correct.
But ultimately speaking, what he's describing maintains the angular size. If you take a single line, or akin to two parallel lines to that target, it maintains angular size. If you draw a V shape out like he's got down here, basic perspective projection, well then if you've got those, you can obviously take an angle. I know you can't see my mouse, but just keep it up for a second, Anthony. You can take an angle. Yeah? You can draw one massive circle around this point, and what you end up with between these two lines, this V, is the angle. And that angle, for whatever it is you're measuring, if this square box at the end was the target, that is perspective. That is the angular size. And you can measure it if you take two lines, not one. They take one because that means they can ignore perspective.
So which would be this point, I believe. You would have the top line to the mountain and you would have the bottom line to the mountain. And as it basically, you continue the two lines, top and bottom, down to a point, and they do converge. Now, what the perspective calculator doesn't do is allow for that convergence or that perspective. Anyway, look at this next line. Anything above that point on the mountain is visible. Anything below that point is hidden. The calculator calculates the height of the point above the water level, the actual hidden height. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That bit's fine. The calculator tells you how much of the mountain is hidden. This is where it goes wrong, because the value that you put on the mountain at that distance is important. If you put in 1,000 feet for the mountain, then that will be wrong. It should be 1,000 feet at 30 miles, for example. So this is where it goes wrong. This line, this first part of the line is correct. The calculator calculates the height of that point above the water level. Agreed. The actual hidden height. Agreed. This is where it goes wrong. When you do this next step. When you do this is where it goes wrong. The calculator tells you how much of the mountain is hidden. You have to deal with the mountain. You have to put the mountain in because the calculator doesn't address for it. This is where it goes wrong, because the mountain is not 1,000 feet when you put it in. It's 1,000 feet at 30 miles. Anyway, applying perspective is calculating what this height would be in an image. It's not hard to apply perspective. To apply perspective, you just multiply out the actual sizes. In 3D graphics, you can apply this FD scale separately. Look, it's just multiplying by f and then dividing by z, the distance to the object. Fine. The focal length is really a scaling factor. If you want relative apparent sizes, you can give it an arbitrary value like 1, giving you 1D. It's really that.
Been sniped because Anthony's not watching the back door. I tried to keep him out. There'll be a short intermission while we start a new hangout. My apologies to the audience.
Yo.
Hello again.
Where did I get to?
You got to... you were about to conclude, I think. You'd got most of it in, to be honest.
Had I got to the part where it accepts perspective?
Yes. We literally only lost a few seconds of you.
So basically, he's accepting that perspective is not in it. He needs to do one of the two things, but he can't, because if he does either of them, perspective then gets applied, and in almost all cases, things then fall behind the curve of the Earth, and we don't see that real world. So I basically said that it's up to you, Mick. It's your science, right? I don't care if you do nothing, but the longer you do nothing, the more flat Earth is going to be onto you about it. Jaren's onto it now, and you can be sure that Globebusters will all be onto it imminently. And we're making enough credible noise that your calculator is going to be literally dismissed by ballers as well if you don't do something. They do understand the point. At the moment, they're pretending to us that it's wrong, but they know that we are right, and this will not last. It's your call. He's responded, and his response is, "You are incorrect. Ask someone who knows how 3D projection and cameras work." So now Mick's accepting that perspective is not in the maths, but when pointed out that he's got to do something if he's to maintain an honest, integral position on his calculator, he now claims that I'm incorrect. And now he passes the buck to say, ask someone who knows how 3D projection and cameras work. No, apply the perspective, Michael. Change the website a little bit. Either put the asterisk in or put the perspective maths in. We knew that you wouldn't do the change, but now you've changed your position. And instead of gone from, perspective is a thing, you've now gone into straight denial, which you have to do. So Mick's not going to change it, and that's fine. But the more he doesn't change it, the more we can beat on about it and show that this is not right. We do not have a world devoid of perspective.
Did Eleanor push escape?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Is that what happened? I was just teasing. Eleanor
Oh no,
must have reached up on the
Effie
keyboard
Cult
and pushed
Exposer
escape.
joined and sniped Anthony when he wasn't. He was doing a presentation, so he wasn't watching the back door at the time. It's not his fault. I was getting rid of them, and then I just wasn't quick enough on the mouse.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just delays us by about a minute.
Correct.
And let's remind the people that it's an open chat. Anybody can join. It's not an echo chamber. But you're free to come and tell us that we're morons. Just bring some evidence that supports the position that we are actually morons. The obvious shape of the Earth is flat, and if it's not flat, it's definitely close to flat. It certainly isn't a sphere of a circumference of 24,970 miles. There is no radius to be calculating for. Whatever it is we live on may not be flat, but it's definitely not a ball. It appears to be flat, could be something else. We don't have a map. We don't really need a map. We just need to show you guys that we're not living on a sphere, which is essentially our position. Who cares what we actually live on? That's what science is supposed to be telling us, right? But we don't live on a sphere. It's not of the size they tell us. If anything, it's much, much bigger, or it's flat. And if it's not flat, something else, who cares? Just not a ball. Science has been telling us lies.
Yeah, this is it for all the sheep people following this denial trail that we're experiencing while they simultaneously say that perspective is real, but we don't have to account for it. It's like, start questioning yourself. Questioning yourself and your religious belief, man, because that's all you've got.
And the best thing is, though, even people that are like on what Tim would describe as the low-hanging fruit, like, for instance, I don't know, most of the sheep, Alkay, Dawn Shredder, these people are the ones that are the most likely to be on the fringes of moving from one side to at least a neutral position. But they can't, because the trolls are that vehement, and they're not going to turn against the trolls. No matter how much evidence is presented. Dawn said it would take, what did he say? Extraordinary evidence to persuade him that the Earth wasn't a sphere. And I'm like, well, there's an abundance of evidence out there. You ignore it all and dismiss it, but there is loads of it. There is so many people doing so many observations, and they're all coming back and showing that it can't possibly be a sphere.
Yeah, the problems with their sphere evidence is that it's all refutable. It's all drawn scrutiny. It's all coming into question. So the fact that it's being questioned by more than one or more than 10 people should actually draw attention to this discussion a little further. I like how people like these trolls, they like to pick apart the individual as though, how could you possibly believe this? You, one person, believing this? Because that's not the case. There's many of us that are coming to the realization that we're not living on a sphere. You know, because I mean, all the evidence is pointing in that way, and all the deception that we've been receiving, we've uncovered it as being deception. I mean, it's clear as day.
Yeah. So all those people asking for a model or a map for what we live on, how on earth can you expect us to realistically get a map? There's no science for a flat Earth. All the science is based around living on a sphere. All the cartographers in the world all believe we live on a sphere, apparently. Or do they? Maybe they don't. I don't know. But how can you expect us to have anything to do with a map or a model when the most that we've got is a P900 and a compass?
in regards to perspective, I was thinking about the other day because I watch airplanes that are leaving trails behind and whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. So if you ever watch from a distance a plane coming at you with a trail, you can it looks like it's rising up, right? It looks like it's going up directly if it's coming at you from 50 to 100 miles or whatever off in the distance. It looks like it's flying upwards, but as it gets towards you, it looks like it levels off and it's flying flat. Now I understand that, oh yeah, it looks like it's going up because it's going around the curve. Well, the problem is that you don't see the plane or the trail of the plane that it's leaving. You don't see that at the point of the horizon, depending on how far up the observer is or whatever, and if you can see it come from that point. But the plane looks like it's going directly up. So to talk about perspective, that's what the sun is doing. It looks like it's rising up, but then as it gets over you, it's going flat over your head, and it does an arc to follow the plane of the Earth, but it's not doing an arc to go around the curvature of the Earth.
Yep. Oh, I think you just got muted, Rio.
Oh, I did mute myself, but and also in the summertime, I live far north in the United States. In the height of summer, the sun, I can see the light radiating from the sun at about 9:30 to 10 o'clock at night, at the height of summer, to the north of me. And I live away from cities, so there's no city that is radiating its inorganic light into the atmosphere to distort that, to make it look anywhere like, oh, FE Colt's back in quick. Yeah, so there's no inorganic light that is making it appear to be the sun's light, but it's not. It is the sun's light, and it's almost directly north of me at about 10 p.m. Eastern. FE Colt's back in.
I don't know how he can get back in once he's been kicked out. How's that happening? It must be a different account with the same name on it. I don't know. I don't know how they're doing it.
Different
You've been muted again anyway, Rio.
Oh, I am. Yep. So I think everyone got the gist of what I was saying there. I can see the sun's light at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, U.S. to the north of me. Okay, that should not be happening on a globe Earth. Okay, should not be happening.
Right, we saw exactly the same thing during Tracking the Sun, whatever it was, 18 months or 2 years ago. Yeah, I can see it from my position here, and I'm not even that far north. Yeah, the sun just carries on moving around. It sets, and then you see the light carry on, keeps traveling.
Right. If everyone, at the height of the summer in your area, if you're up at like 9:30, 10 o'clock or whatever, take a look to see where the sun's light's at, and then kind of picture in your head how that works on a globe model, because it just doesn't. And it blew my mind last year when I noticed it, that we're going to reach the height of summer soon, in a month or whatever. So I'm going to be paying attention to it this year too. But last year I discovered it, and I just came across flat Earth knowledge, and it blew my mind. It made perfect sense to me at that point on, and everything started looking more clear. So
yeah, they say that's explained by the tilt, but the reality.
Yeah, I know what they say. I understand that. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. That guy keeps getting back in here, man. That's crazy. How does that guy keep? These guys are relentless.
I don't think he can stay in long. I think he gets auto kicked after a second. I don't know how he gets in, to be honest. Because once he gets blocked the first time, that should be it. But we can control it. It's just we have to pay attention. That's all. But this is what happens when you have the open hangout concept that Nathan does.
Right, but that's welcoming, though. It's saying, hey, look, we're up to debating this topic in a reasonable fashion without the slanders and the finger pointing, also the rubbish. That's the problem with the globe, the globe position on this, is that they don't have any ammunition to add fuel to their own fire. They're having issues, so they resort to name calling and calling us stupid, morons, and all these other slanders, and that makes you look really bad. If you cannot disprove what is being presented to you, and you have to resort to slanders and whatnot. I mean, that's how that's kind of like how wars get started. When people don't know how to debate, they can't hold their emotions in, so they start resorting to violence, type of thing. That's the same concept. If you cannot debate rationally and I guess we'll call it quote unquote civil in a civilized manner, then you know, you don't have a position here, and there's no point. You've eliminated yourself from this discussion if you resort to that.
Nathan struggles with the civility part, doesn't it? Don't you, Nathan?
Well,
Yeah, it's okay though, Nathan. Look,
linked.
no, it's all right. I used to get really angry at these people, and I understand why he does too. Is because they are just repetitious in their in all their whatever they're trying to present to us. It's just repetition. They don't listen to our side of the conversation. We get interrupted a lot. I mean, yes, we interrupt them, but it's like they're repeating themselves over and over and over again, and it's like they're not listening. They're not listening to what we have to say before they create their rebuttal. You know,
Even
they're
their
just thinking that-
obfuscation tactics is becoming repetitive.
Yep. And the other thing is as well, they dismiss it with an explanation rather than proof. So if somebody explains how it works, then that's considered proof. No, that's not the acceptable standard in science. You can't explain something and then just go, that's accepted. You have to show that it is true, which is why that evidence for the Curie point or for the iron core is really important. There is no evidence that shows that molten iron in its molten state beyond its Curie temp, its Curie point, can self-perpetuate its own charge unless there's an induced force. And on the heliocentric model, there is no induced force. So you can't have anything beyond, anything above the Curie point is not magnetic because there's no induction. No induction on the heliocentric model. So it stops there. That there isn't, unless you can prove that that is not the case, and can't.
You don't need reason or logic as a baller. You just need
ignorance.
You just let fear keep them in line.
It's embarrassing.
Fear of the consensus and love for the body of science will keep them in line.
It's embarrassing. Did you see the most recent SpaceX launch of the Soyuz capsule that deep inside the rabbit hole covered?
Nah, I didn't watch it, but tell us all about it.
It's basically, if you're a ball earther, you've got to accept that that's true. And if you accept that that's true, happy days. But anybody looking at it with a reasonably critical eye will look at that and just say, that is not real world. Whatever's going on there, that's nonsense, because they had a big crowd of people that had all their cameras pointing at something. And a lot of the people that were in the crowd were pointing the cameras at the back of other people in front of them's head. They weren't aiming it at the thing that they should be looking at. They were just pointing the cameras at nothing.
Oh, I did see that, yes. And he shows just black screens on nearly all of the cameras. They're not actually filming anything. They're just holding the camera up by the looks of the video.
Yeah, they've just got it makes it look like they're filming something, and they've got the camera in the vertical position, but the screens are black.
You know what? I saw that too, and then I kind of sort of tested that theory. I was watching a baseball game, and the TV camera was looking at some fans who were taking a picture like that too, and I had to pause it because I thought of that exact moment. And I was thinking, okay, can I see what they're filming? And it turns out that it looked like it was their reflection in the camera screen, but what I think it was doing was they're taking a selfie of themselves. So I saw that their image. So that's why I figured. So yeah, you should be able to see what's in the picture, barring light coming from behind them or something that may distort the image on the screen for us, the viewer. So yeah, it is kind of funny that they're not taking. They're not. Bobby Bubbles as Fook, flat as Fook.
Any more placeholders that we can join from chat just to control the rift? They don't like this conversation, obviously. So obviously, if we can get people in just as placeholders, that would be helpful. And then it ends up being an echo chamber, doing what they're doing.
Shut up.
We got this prostitute who's constantly trying to barge in.
Prostitutes?
Hola.
The troll.
Is that you, Ranty?
It is.
Good to have you.
It is.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I don't know.
Hopefully, I think we could do with 2 or 3 more people, if that would be good. If you're watching, just click the link in the info box. You don't necessarily have to chat to us. Just act as a placeholder, so I don't have to constantly mute the hangout to stop the troll noise.
And obviously, this is only happening because they can take advantage of the open link that makes it not an echo chamber. not a circle jerk. But unfortunately, by doing this, it means that they get pushed out.
Right. So it's either the chat gets invaded or the chat gets accused of being an echo chamber.
Correct.
Like, you can't win either way.
No, it's a social engineering tactic. You compartmentalize the groups so they isolate from each other and then thereby weaken them.
Alan B.
Hey, Alan.
Hello, boys.
Good to have
How
you.
are we today?
Not too bad. Nice weather.
Yes, nice weather for doxing people about stuff. I saw your comment to Spurs Chemo reporting that I doxed him. It's not very polite, that, Alan.
You what?
I saw your comment telling Spurs Chemo that I doxed him.
Doxed him with regards.
I can't even remember what it was. Oh, kids. I made a comment about how many kids he had, and you reported to him quickly that I doxed him. And I was like, really? Alan? Grassing on me for not even doxing? It's not very polite, that, Alan.
Just checking in with Chemo. He's having a rough week. He's giving up.
Yeah, I call that shit staring.
He's
Telling
giving up the
tales.
weed.
That's
No,
what
we're
that
good
is.
friends now.
Telling tales.
Shit staring. But you know what they say about people?
That's a bit rich coming from you.
I don't
Rich
shit stare on anything.
That shit's a little rich.
I don't shit stare anything. I don't get involved in any of the drama. I ignore it all. I just, well, can you name any evidence of me shit staring at all? Ever?
You're always doxing.
Against me,
I think it's acceptable if between me and Arwin.
Gets a bit boring.
yeah, as long as you don't overdo it.
Yeah, and I don't overdo it. I just make the point quietly and then rattle off. But anyway, point is though, Alan, I saw your comment stirring that pot, trying to cause a little bit of trouble.
So what?
Well, why would you do that? I thought you considered.
Do just a couple more people to join from the chat, and then the interruptions will be over. So yes, if you would be so kind, if someone can click the link bottom of the info box, just so we can stop being infested.
Infestation.
We're trying to keep the prostitute
Preston,
out.
is that you, real
Festering
person? Hopefully.
infestation.
Yeah.
Thanks, Preston. Need one more person, and then a conversation that's normal will ensue for the last 7 minutes of this show. Then we'll take a short break, and there'll be another show 5 minutes after that. Need one more.
And obviously, it just means that the echo chamber's been reduced down to the point where the trolls can no longer get in. But at least
Somebody doesn't have much of a life.
no, there's a correlation with one particular person that makes an appearance and the troll infestation. I've mentioned it before, and Nathan's like, "Yeah, I still think it's such a body," and I'm like, "Nah, it's not." Look, so shout out to that one troll that's got out of bed early.
Shout out troll.
Hello, hello, it's me.
Brilliant.
Can you hear me?
Good morning, Ruben.
Ah, trolling will end. Great.
Well, real quick. I just off topic.
Yeah, it's the real me. I'm just gonna
I
mute.
came-
Bye.
Thanks,
We're
Rue.
full.
I came across an ice cream yesterday that is tea and biscuit, and it is amazing. Thank you, Britain. Thank you,
Tea
England.
biscuit ice cream.
Yeah,
and
it's
biscuit.
bloody amazing.
Love it.
I thought of you, Riley, when I got it. I was like, oh, I think Anthony would like this. I'm gonna.
Yeah. The ice cream man came
Think of
round.
Alan, but Alan's always the ice cream there.
Yeah. The ice cream man came round, and I thought of Alan. The
Tea
grass
and
that he
biscuit.
is.
Nice to know you're thinking of me, Riley.
Yeah, the grass that you are, Alan.
Just for those who don't understand this in joke, the whole point with
Has
ice
he got
creams
5
is
kids
there was a
now?
mathematical example given by Anthony, which was if I've got 2 ice creams and you say I want 5 ice creams off you, you can't give somebody 2 ice creams and say it's 5. You don't have the negative 5. You can do it with mathematics, but in reality, you can only ever give someone the 2 ice creams. Yeah.
Yeah.
And unless they shit snow cones.
Or you
Unless
can
they shit snow
separate-
cones, yes,
you can
Arwen.
you can separate those scoops into individual scoops. You can.
Yeah, but that's still not. End of the day, you can only do it with maths, right? And that don't make it true. So with sphericalness, yeah, you can calculate for a sphere, but that don't make it true. So the comparison is a direct one with regards to the 7/6R. Yeah, you can do it with maths, but does that make it true? And the answer, of course, is no, because if you've got only 2 ice creams, I can't take 5 off you And yeah, you might owe me 3 ice creams, but I've still only got the 2 ice creams that you had.
Hey, Riley, can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Hey, just in a second, or whenever y'all get an open spot, can you tell me why you think National Geographic was able to measure 40 feet of curvature?
You mean against the P900 holder that was also at the same shore at the same time and got the what did I can't remember what the counter for it was, Nath. What was the issue, Nath?
The issue was it's National Geographic doing the study.
Ooh.
Yeah,
right. But I tried to watch it and I tried to be non-biased as possible, and
the problem
I guess I had to have been there.
The problem was there was other people there at the same time doing the same footage, right? And basically they got right down to the water's level, like a foot off the water, not on a tripod. They were like the lowest that you could get it at. And they were getting different results, but better results that showed that the balloon experiment that they were claiming showed the curvature of the Earth, even though it was in the wrong place. They were getting objects that were at the water level that were basically way below the 40 feet. And Geographic ignored that because they were focusing on the balloon. But there is evidence that shows that the balloon wasn't the lowest thing in the footage. But I can't remember who. That's going to come out in the next. You watch in the next week or two. That'll all come out. So right at this point, we need to see the evidence. We need to see the experiment. We need to see the claim. We need to see the results. But ultimately, it's going to be explained. So let's put that one on ice for the moment. See what Nat Geo did come up with, and then see what other people that were at the same place at the same time with P900s doing the same observation, see what they also come up with, and see whether Nat Geo were actually being honest.
Did they go down to under a foot?
I can answer that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I can answer that for you.
Wow.
And say that they're probably not going to show the footage that the other people
took.
No,
National Geographic won't, but there'll be other people.
Yeah, exactly. So they're just going to say like nothing ever happened, and oh yeah, they said we couldn't get the curvature, and
yeah, I think
did, and nothing. Yeah, don't look on YouTube. Just don't.
I think National Geographic will be showing the balloon thing, but it'll be going above that refractive band at the horizon, the dirty air or whatever. It'll be going above that, and that's what they'll call the curvature of the Earth. And remember, any obstruction's curvature, right?
So you say they're going under a foot and they're getting a further observation, like what we've been doing?
Well, there was somebody there with a P900 that was basically at water level.
Right, fantastic.
Yeah, and they've got better results, but Nat Geographic, I don't know whether they knew about it or whether they did know about it and chose to ignore it or what, but I'm sure that that's going to end up being a big debate point in the next week or two when it might take 6 months for them to get out on Nat Geographic, but there, as far as I'm aware, there was other people there that did get different results, but it's whether or not Nat Geographic show it, because
that's pretty awesome, because we've led the way in that, essentially.
Yeah, there was somebody
promoting the 1 foot and under.
Because Rob Skiba said you can see who the flat earther is, and he showed the 3 or 4 cameras that were on tripods, and there was one camera that was like a foot off the ground, and he said, "You can see who the flat earther is," and I was like, "Go, Rob!"
So they applied the Riley technique.
I don't know. Yeah,
you're the first one.
I think so. Yeah. Foot off the water, and that was. Did you see that, Nathan? Where he said, "You can see who the flat earther is."
He said, "You can see the flat earthiness."
No, he said you can see who the flat earther is.
Who the flat earther is? No, I didn't see that bit.
He panned his camera across 3 tripods that are all about 3 foot high, and then there was one that was basically kissing the water on like upside down on a tripod, and he said you can see who the flat earther is, and it was great.
Was it a woman?
Because that was.
Well, that was who Stephen Chess was telling us about. So Stephen Chess came on yesterday's show, where 281. And explained that he was there at the time filming, he filmed Patricia being filmed. There was a lot of filming going on, obviously. But he was over her shoulder watching what she had done, and it was her that caught exactly that. So if it was the Riley technique that's been applied, then brilliant. Yeah. That's what's got the footage. But essentially, Stephen went to, I don't know if it was the producer, but, somebody who was part and parcel of Nat Geo's experiment, if you can call it that in quotes, and explained exactly that to him, and he said that he was just dismissed. So that was Stephen Chess's yesterday's show, 281. Check it out.
Yeah, it was the last 15 minutes of 281. So that's the answer to the question, whoever it was that asked that. I believe it was it Rune or Preston?
No, it was me, and I thought maybe the location and the time of day that they chose to do it, I thought wasn't very smart.
Well, it was early in the morning, wasn't it? You could tell by the shadows were long. But I in my experience, my best clarity has always come towards the evening, because in the morning for me, when I always seem to be looking, because of where I am in the country, I'm always looking west. When the sun rises behind me in the east, it creates loads of shadows, but it also has a lot of condensed air that's not gone back into the water, creating mist above the water. So I always find, for me personally, that in England, that in the morning, that condensation that's happened overnight, if it hasn't been adopted and amalgamated back into the water, it sits above the water as mist. You ain't seeing shit for me, as far as I'm concerned, in the morning. But I think that's a local thing for me. I think that might not be the case for everybody. So for me, it's like, well, you need to do it not at high noon. You need to do it in the evening when the sun's going down and everything settles off, because we see in the Skunk Bay footage that during the high noon part of the day, everything goes to shit. But by the end of the evening, when the sun's like lost all its intensity because it's moved further away from us, and we're still getting sunlight, but we're not getting direct sunlight, and it's not causing evaporation, and it's not heating everything up, it's cooling everything down, then it's just removing the heat source. That's when things start to settle back down, and that's when I've had my best results, and I'm sure Ranty would agree.
And with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!